Hi, what's going on guys? Welcome back to my channel. So a few days ago I made this poll and I asked you guys what you prefer to see next. So as you can see here, pretty much most of you chose Svelte fundamentals to advanced topics. So here we are, this is exactly what we are going to do. So let me show you what we are going to cover in this video. Most of these things are going to be related to Svelte and not SvelteKit. So we're going to start with what is Svelte, with some advantages. We're going to see some Svelte fundamentals, some logic and rendering, bindings, stores, and we're going to go all the way to creating this to-do app, which is going to also use Svelte stores, and it's going to be persistent to local storage. So I hope you enjoy, and let's begin. First of all, let's take a look at ChatGPT definition of Svelte. I'm not going to read through all of this, but some key notes here that actually Svelte considered to be more compiler than a framework, and basically it takes all the Svelte files and just compile them to vanilla.js, like optimized vanilla.js. So let's take a look at this. At its core, Svelte is designed to address some of common challenges and performance bottlenecks associated with other frameworks. Instead of shipping a large runtime library to the client's browser and relying on the virtual DOM for updates, Svelte compiles your components to highly optimized JavaScript code during the build process. This means that the Svelte doesn't burden your users with unnecessary runtime code, resulting in faster load times and better performance. So let's look actually at some advantages of Svelte. I will make notes about each of them. So first of all, faster load times. So Svelte's compiler-driven approach eliminates the need for runtime library, resulting in smaller bundle size. This leads to a significantly faster load times for your web applications, enhancing the user experience. So this is a very good advantage, of course. No virtual DOM is something that I really like. So unlike many other frameworks, Svelte doesn't rely on virtual DOM. Instead, it directly compiles your code into a highly efficient JavaScript, okay, just as I told you. Yeah, easy learning curve. So this one also is very great. So Svelte, simple and HTML centric syntax makes it easier for developers, both beginners and experienced, to quickly get to speed up with the framework. So you will see in a moment, like in the code, how everything is much more simplified compared to something like Angular or React. Reactivity out of the box. So Svelte provides built-in reactivity without the need for additional state management libraries. Component-based architecture, so this is not something new. React was actually the first that done it pretty good, and Svelte, of course, they're taking the same approach. So Svelte embraces the component-based architecture, making it easy to create reusable and maintainable UI components for your applications, and optimized for performance and ecosystem and community. While Svelte's ecosystem is still growing, it has an active and passionate community of developers and growing number of third-party libraries. So regarding the ecosystem, what I haven't actually tried yet to use much of JS libraries in Svelte, but from what I heard, from what people say, everything that is supported by vanilla.js is supported by Svelte, and it's very easy to implement it. So the ecosystem is actually supposed to be pretty big. Yeah, and of course we have here the hello world example, so we cannot go without it. So let's go to the code, to this page actually, and let's see, we will see the text, yeah, but let's see the hello world example. So here we have a SvelteKit application. So you don't need to pay attention to this structure and everything. SvelteKit has by default folder-based routing. So each route in each page that I make here, it's going to be reflected in the UI as a route. Okay, so for example, the root page is going to be this plus page.svelte in the root of my route folder. So if I go here and scroll all the way down, you can see here just an H1 with some, I actually used the Tailwind here, but if you want to style a SvelteKit application, it's very easy because you can use this style tags here in this Svelte files, and by default your styles will be like generated with unique IDs, so you don't even need to think about uh, cascading the styles and overriding styles for other files. So it's very convenient. But I just decided to go with Tailwind for this one. So here is our Hello World example. And you can see that this H1 is just sitting here in the page inside actually nothing. So let's see. So we have here H1 with hello name example. So where is this name coming from? This name is a variable, of course. And if we go all the way up, so you can see here at the top, I declared a script tag, and the language that I choose is TypeScript. And here we can see that let name equals world. And actually I can use this name inside my HTML like this. Okay, so with the curly braces, I can use variables. Basically inside here, everything is basically JavaScript. So I can do also manipulations and stuff like and stuff that I can do on a string, okay, in JavaScript. So I hope that makes sense, this hello world example. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the fundamentals. So in the fundamentals page, we have here some basic example with component, okay, with props and with children. And here we have a simple counter example. So first of all, you can see a counter, and this is a derived counter that is deriving its state from the regular counter. And of course, I can stop the counter, and now you can see that both of these counter stopped. And I can continue the counter, and another thing, I can reset the counter. Okay, so basically reset both of them. If I want to reset and stop, I can stop the counter and reset. So now let's go to the fundamentals page. So let's go to fundamentals plus page.svelte. So first let's look at the component. Okay, so the component example is pretty straightforward. So you can see that I have my component, which I'm importing from a lib folder. So by default, you have absolute path to the lib folder. So SvelteKit provides you this $lib as absolute path. So if you go here, you can see that I'm importing this example component .svelte. So let's go to lib components, and you can see here my Svelte component and what we have here. So first of all, I pass the title. So this is a title from props. Okay, so this is my title. And I pass here a paragraph with children. Okay, so this is basically the children of my component. So if I go to example components.svelte, so here is how you can receive the props from outside. So you can see here, I declare a variable which is called title. I can say that this is going to be a type of string. And because I use an export here, this is actually coming out from outside as props. Okay, so by default, it's going to be empty string. And here, the title, you can see that I use it here inside the HTML template. I can see that, okay, so I have a check here. So remember this, inside this curly braces, it's just JavaScript. So if I have a title, I will display the title. Otherwise, I will display cookies, okay? Let's actually go back here. No, let's go back to the fundamentals page and let's try to remove this title, okay? So I saved the page, and now you can see the title is going to be defaulted to cookies because I didn't pass the title as props. But I do want to pass it as props, so let's get it back. And now let's look at the children thing. So how the children is going to be rendered inside my component is very simple. There is a special element, it's called slot, and everything inside this slot is going to be the children. So very straightforward. So you can see the title, the top, the children, and the buttons. Okay, so title, children, buttons. Now let's look at the counter example. So let's go to, I think it's timer, but let's go to the page and check it. Yeah, so it's the timer component. Okay, so few things. Let's start from the imports. Okay, so in Svelte, you have the life cycle pretty much similar to the other frameworks. So you can have on mount and on destroy. So on mount, I think there is also after update or something like that. Yeah, after update, before update, um, and so on and so on. But what I need for this component is on destroy. So basically, on destroy means that when the component is unmounted, I want to run some function. So on destroy, I have here a callback that is clearing the interval basically. So after I destroy the component, so basically if I go to a different page, the component is destroyed and uh, the interval is cleared. So this is pretty basic. So now let's see how we implement the counter. Okay, so we have here a variable which is called count. We have here a boolean which is called is running. Okay, so this is a boolean. We have interval which is going to be set interval. We have this dollar which is a reactive, like it's like a reactive statement, and I can define here another variable. It's going to be derived count. I just call it derived count, and it's going to be count multiplied by 2. So because of this thing over here, I can listen to changes to count and update derived count when these changes happen. Okay. So I forgot to mention something very important, that is how Svelte is actually different from React. Is this component is not going to re-render every time something is changing. So it's going to be, this component is going to run just one time. I can actually prove it by going to the browser, and you will see this console log printed just one time. Okay, so we will see the count is printed just once because this component is never going to be re-rendered. So let's go to the web page. Let's actually open here the console. We can clear everything. Let's go to Svelte fundamentals, and you can see here you can see the count is going to be logged just one time as 0, so as its default value. So you can see that the counter here is changing. Okay, so it's changing because the count is reactive. So basically, you can see here that the count is going to be like the UI is going to change, but this script is not going to run again. And I can also show you another thing, that if I use this dollar, okay, for example here, so let's say dollar, and let's say, oh, let's open here this. You can put it. You can put not. You're not like limited to one line. You can just use a block of code here. So let's put this console log inside here. Now let's check the UI. So you can see that because we are using, because we are console logging the count inside this the reactive dollar statement, or however they call it. Now every time that count is changing, I'm going to make a console log because of this thing, okay? So this is how you listen to reactive things inside the script. So now let me actually stop the interval, and you can see that as soon as I stopped the interval, the console log stopped because the count is not changing anymore. So if I reset, I'm going to see the console log again. So I hope it makes sense, and I hope now you understand how Svelte is fundamentally different from React. So you actually need to search for, actually have to, in React you have to avoid re-renders. Here you need to search for reactivity. So it's like a totally different mindset. So let's get back to how it was, and let's continue with this explanation. So we have three functions, okay? We have handle stop, handle reset, and handle continue. So handle stop is going to clear the interval. So you can see here the interval is this one, and I'm going to say that is running is going to be equal to false. So another thing that you probably already notice, is running is equal to false, count is equals to 0. You don't need to have some kind of getter and setter with state. You can manipulate the state just like it's a JavaScript variable. You don't need set state, you don't need some, I don't know, set state and getter and setter for this. You can directly say that count is going to be equal to 0, and directly say that is running is equal to false, and it's so much simpler, so much more readable. You avoid so much annoying boilerplate like importing use state, importing use effect, doing all this count, set count equals to use state, and in the beginning it's 0, and so on and so on. So you can see how it's much more developer friendly than React. Yeah, so let's look at handle continue. So first of all, I still need to clear the interval because I need to clear the current interval, and I want to set the interval again to this set interval count plus plus, okay? And I want to say is running is equals to true. So why do we need this boolean? Just to show different UI. Okay, so if the interval is running, I want to do handle stop. If the interval is not running, I want to do handle continue. And for the text as well. If the interval is running, I want to display a stop button. If the interval is not running, I want to display continue. Very simple counter, but you can see how it's even more simplified. So I hope you enjoyed this part. The next thing that we're going to do is to go through logic and rendering. Okay, so you need to have some abilities for logic in your templates. So I want to show you some examples. So first of all, I will show you if statement and the loop statement and the promise. Okay, so let's go to the code, and let's actually close everything from here. Let's go to logic rendering. Okay, so in the top we have here, first of all, I declared interface with response. We'll see later this promise thing that I created. So what we have here, we have is off is going to be false. This is just a boolean. And we have an array of colors. So what we do with these colors is so here you can see in the template we have few possibilities for logic. So first of all, we have if statements and else statements. So here you can see that if is off, I'm going to display this p tag, you are authenticated, else I'm going to display you are not authenticated. And here you can see the each block. So the syntax is pretty weird in the beginning, but you need to get used to it. So for each colors as color, and basically so basically I'm looping through colors. So you can see colors is string array, and color is going to be string. So just like it's defined here. So when I have each color, what do I do with each color? I just display a paragraph with background color of the color. And I also have access to the index. So each of these elements it have index, and I can display the index and the color. So let's take a look. 0 is red, 1 is orange, 2 yellow, and so on. So you saw the if statement, you saw the each statement, and now let's look at something interesting. So I can even await for promises, okay? So I can use await, then catch. So this is something very cool, okay? So I can await the promise. So let's take a look at what is promise. So here we're just defining a new promise, which is going to return this response interface with a message of string. And I can say, I can create a set timeout just to create a promise that is going to wait for 3 seconds before it's resolved. Okay, so after 3 seconds, I want to resolve and I want to return this object with message success. Now let's pay attention. Let's go back to the UI and let's pay attention. So first of all, I'm going to see the loading paragraph because we are waiting for the promise. But we have here a then response. So then when we have the response, I'm going to see the response.message. And if we have an error, but in our case, we are not going to have an error because I'm just resolving it. But if we have an error, we will see this paragraph with the error. Okay, so let's take a look at the UI. Let me actually, so look at this text. Now it's success, but if I reload the page, you can see loading. And after 3 seconds, it's going to display as success. So we have access to basically async await inside our templates. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is bindings. Okay, so as you know, in React, it's a nightmare to work with forms, and usually you will end up using some library like React hook form. So what we can do with Svelte is something very cool, which is called binding. So as you can see, I took this form from Tailwind components with some options, okay? So I'm not going to fill everything here. It is just an example, so let's just fill the about, okay? And let's, I don't know, choose a country and maybe some checkboxes, okay? So something like that. When I click on save, I have the access to all the data of the form, so I'm actually just alerting it. So you can see the country is United States. I have this about thing, the notifications, the things that I choose, and the radio button. Basically, you will see how it's easy, how it's very simplified to work with forms. So let's go to code. We close this thing and let's go to bindings. So yeah, so we need the form actually. So let's go to the form. And so what we have here, first of all, I declared all the variables that I need for my form fields. So I have username, about, first name, country, notifications is a string array, and push notifications. And the handle submit is just an alert with all the values. So nothing interesting here. But what is interesting is how these values are coming from the form to these variables. So let's see. So we have simple form, HTML form, and here we have an event listener. So on submit, first of all, you can see here that I use prevent default. So this is something that you should usually do with forms if you want to prevent the default behavior, like refresh the page. And if I remove this, you will see like the URL is changing with all the values of the form and so on. So on submit, I'm just going to handle submit. So this is how you add event listeners. Now let's take a look at some bindings. So first bind is the username. So I'm binding to this input. I just say bind the value, and I say bind the value to the username. And this is how it's binded. I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to do on change e.target.value like you do with React. Then you do set username to the e.target.value, and you probably know these nightmares. So this is the only thing that you need to do to make this form reactive and responds to the username. And basically, every match is pretty much the same. You will see like some differences for selects and maybe checkboxes, but here again, I have another field. I do bind value about, go down, bind value first name, go down, bind value last name, go down, bind value email, and here is a select. Okay, so here I put the bind on the select element itself. So bind value country, and when I select something from the options, it's going to be the option that I selected. Let's go down. So here we have something a little bit different. So here we say bind group notifications. So this input is a checkbox. Okay, so you can see that I I use bind group, and I use it for all the checkboxes, and I bind notifications to all of them. So you can see here the three checkboxes are going to have the same bind. So I'm binding the three of them to notifications. And because it's a checkbox, it knows how to behave properly. So I can have multi-select. Okay. Let's go down. And here I bind to group to push notifications. So you can see in this example, I still have a bind group push notifications for all of the radio buttons, but because this type is radio, now I can select only one of them. So everything is actually working out of the box. I didn't do anything special here. And we finished with the bindings, okay? This is all you need to do to work with forms in Svelte. So you just go through your elements and just use bind to the HTML elements that you need. All right, now we're going to talk about stores and context. So first of all, again, if you're coming from React, you probably know the pain of stores. Okay, so you have many options in React. So you can use Redux Toolkit, you can use Ustand, you can use Recoil, you can use Jotai, what else? Mobex if you're old school, and so on. So in Svelte, you don't need to install any of this. You just use the Svelte stores, okay? So first of all, let's look at this counter thing, okay? So pretty simple thing. You can increment the counter, decrement, and reset. And the context is going to toggle a theme from light to dark. So this is a store and this is a context. So let's take a look at the code. Here we are in the stores page. So first of all, let's look at some functions. So actually, yeah, let's look first at the functions. So increment, decrement, and this is a store that we are going to talk about in a moment, a writable store. So first of all, increment is going to take something that is called count store. So we still don't know what is count store, which it's coming from this stores file. It's going to update, basically take the previous value and update it by 1. Decrement is going to take previous value from the count store and decrement it by 1. And now let's take a look at the count store. So let's go to this file. And this is how you use stores with Svelte. So you import something that is called writable. Okay, so from Svelte store. And here you can define how your store is going to actually look like. So what data is going to be inside your store. So in my store, we have a number and by default, it's going to be 0. So now you probably see the connection between how you define a store and how you update a store. So you can import your store, and you can do your store.update, and you will have a callback function to update your store. Let's take a look at the counter store. So how you actually using this value. So this is pretty simple. You can see here, you just define it with dollar in the beginning, and dollar counter store is going to be the value of the store. So see here, it's going to be number. So I guess I hope it's pretty easy for you. I cannot explain it in any more detail because it's very simplified, so there is not much to explain. We have the two buttons here, which is going to do increment and decrement and this is actually it. This is the store. So let's take a look. What is this? What is this nested component? I want to take a look because I don't remember. So this nested component is just the reset button. Okay, so let's say that I can get the count store from stores as I did before. And on click, I want to reset the store. So how do I reset the store? I can say count store dot set 0. So pretty straightforward. So I have an update and I have a set for the store. Basically, these functions are come by default from the Svelte store. Now let's take a look at the context example. So let's go back to the page. So here we have app context, which is going to be a writable store. And I want to say that here we're going to have a theme variable, which is by default going to be light. And I want to have a function that is going to be toggle theme. So toggle theme is going to target the app context with the dollar, and I can say that app context dot theme is going to be equals to, so if the app context dot theme is equals to light, it's going to be dark, otherwise it's going to be light. And here is the example of the context. So I can use this set context, which is coming from Svelte, and I specify here that the key is going to be up context and the value is going to be the up context. So I have set the context, and now let's look at this context child component. I can just the way that I set context, I can also get context. So I can access the context like this. So up context is going to be get context, and I specify the key of up context. So now I have access to this up context thing, and again I use this dollar up context, and I can access to the theme. And here I use the on click, and I use up context dot toggle theme. So I have access also for the functionality. So this is a little bit more complex. I don't actually see for now a good reason to use context other than just a writable store. Like, why would you do this thing inside a context? I mean, yeah, I can see that if you want to define your store in the Svelte file, you don't want to go to a stores file because it has to be .ts, then maybe you can just set it in the context, and you can access the context anywhere from the system. And yeah, but anyway, so this is the two examples for stores and context. And in the last part, we are going to look at the to-do app, which is again going to use stores. So if you still didn't understand it properly, you will see how we implement the to-do app, and I hope it will make more sense. Okay, now let's take a look at the to-do app. So first of all, if I refresh the page, the to-dos are persistent. Okay, can go to other pages, go back. The to-dos are persistent because they are sitting in our local storage. So here we have our three to-dos. So anyway, to-do app with basic functionality, you can toggle to-dos, and basically it will make a line through. You can delete to-dos, and you can add to-dos. So let's say new to-do, clicked enter, and it added here a new to-do. And of course I can toggle, and every state is persistent. So if I go to a different page, go back, and see that still this to-do is done because it has a line through. Okay, so let's take a look at the code of the to-do app. So let's start with the to-do store.ts. Here again we are using Svelte store, so I just import writable store from Svelte /store. I define an interface here with my to-do. So we have a text, which is a string, and completed, which is a boolean. And I can say that this writable store is going to be type of to-do list. Okay, so to-do array. And here I specify by default that my store is going to have an array with one object, which is text learn svelte, and completed is true. Okay, so I just define the default value for the store. And now I can export this variable and access it in my page.svelte. So let's take a look. So first of all, I import the to-do item, which we'll see in a moment what it contains. So it's just a Svelte component. To-do store, which is the store, and on mount, which is another lifecycle thing from Svelte that I can run a function one time on the component mount. let's see. So let's first of all, let's look at we don't have to look deeply in the functionality of these functions because it doesn't matter. It's you can see like from the name of the function what this function is supposed to do. So add to do is going to update the store with a new to do. Okay, so I take previous and I return a new array with a new to do, and I'm spreading the previous to dos. And for you can see that for each of these functions, I have here a helper function of add to local storage. So let's actually go down and let's take a look at what add to local storage is. So it's pretty simple. It's just going to local storage.set item to dos with JSON stringify dollar to do store. Okay, so just going to set the to dos in local storage to the to do store state. Okay, so let's continue with so we have add to do, which is pretty straightforward. Delete to do is just going to do store.update. Going to take the previous, and it's going to slice it by the index that I provide. So this is the index of the to-do that I'm deleting. And I'm going to slice one position from it and return the previous. Of course, add to local storage, add to local storage, and toggle to do. Again, it's going to receive index, which is a number. And here we have the previous. So modified to do is going to be previous in the position of the index. And I can say that previous in the position of index is going to be equal to modified to do. So I'm spreading the rest of the to do. And I say that completed is going to be equal the opposite of to do to modify dot completed. So again, the functionality of these functions is not, it doesn't matter much. I just want to show you how the store thing actually implemented in a kind of real to-do application. I hope it makes sense. And on mount, I want to get the items from local storage. To-dos from local storage is going to be equal to local storage dot get item to-dos. And I can see that if type of to-dos from local storage is going to be string, so only if I find this key, then I want to parse the JSON of to-dos from local storage, and I want to say to-dos store.set parsed to-dos. And basically that's it. So this is our to-do app, which is connected to local storage, which is connected to Svelte stores. And look, it's pretty much very simple, I think, for me. Maybe I could even improve it by using this function inside some reactive listener with a dollar. So something, maybe something like this would be better. Something like this. But I remember that I had some issues with local storage, that it wasn't defined in the beginning because first of all, the Svelte component, the Svelte file is rendered on the server and we don't have access to local storage. But I think we could do something like if type of window is not equals to undefined, but I'm not going to mess with this at the moment. But I hope you get the point of I don't find it repetitiveness is very good, but it's just do the job, okay? So for now it will do, so we can get rid of this thing, and let's actually take a look at the template. So I'll show you to finish to wrap everything up. So On submit, we have here the add to do function. So we have basically the form here. So you can see this is the form with new to do and add to do. And I forgot to say that what I'm submitting is this new to do all the time. Okay, so I have here a bind, just like you saw in the form section. So bind value to new to do. So this thing over here. And yeah, so when I add to do, I'm using this new to do to insert the text. And yeah, so for each, here you see also an example of for each, just like we saw before. So I'm using for each on the to do store. So I say that every item is going to be to do. So you can see here to do is the type of to do interface. And I'm rendering to do item, okay? To do item, I'm passing here the index, the to do, delete to do, and toggle to do. And let's go to the to do item. So we'll see how I implemented the delete and toggle. In the delete, yeah, so in the delete here, you can see the toggle and the delete is going to be a function which is going to take index as number and return void. And when I do here on click, I say toggle to do, and I pass the index of the to do. So the index that I get from the props is going to be passed back to the toggle to do and delete to do. And this is how I can know inside these functions what index I need to use. So I hope it makes sense. It's everything here is pretty simple JavaScript, like React stuff with components and stuff like that. It's pretty, if you work with React, everything should make sense for you. But again, the difference, the mindset is very different because you don't need to think for all the overhead that React provides you with re-rendering and all the bugs with the use effects and dependencies and memorization and all this crazy stuff. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I really hope that it helped you understand the basics of Svelte. If you enjoyed and you want to see maybe part 2 regarding more Svelte kit stuff, write me in the comments. I would like also to hear if you're already using Svelte. I really hope it will succeed by overtaking these current garbage frameworks. And another thing, if you want to try Next.js 13, I have here in my channel, so let's take a look. I have here a pretty short series of Next.js 13, but I don't recommend it. It made me regret the day I was born, and I will never going to use Next.js 13 again. But if you're still curious, you can check these videos. Yeah, and other than that, thank you for watching. If you liked, please like the video, and I will see you the next one. Bye, guys.